Right. Takataka te ho, te uru, takataka te ho, te tonga. Kia makina kina, ki tu utu, ki mata, rata ra, ki tai. He, aki, ana, ti ata, kuru. He, tu o, here, huka, here, ho hu, hey, mori ora. Thank you. Right. Do I have any apologies for today's meeting, please? There's one from Councillor Phil James. Any other apologies? Can I have a mover for that apology, please? Thanks, Sophie. Second, Grant. All in favour, say aye. Aye. Aye, carried. No, Chair. Identification of any extraordinary general business. Is there any? No. Conflicts of interest. Is there any? No. Public forum? No. Chairperson's report, verbal. Just like to welcome everybody to the Transport and Infrastructure Committee. And I'm actually very pleased to see that this is actually a process in trial, because it's a change from our last governance structure where we had all our business in council. And there will be 2 review items available with regards to the progress of this meeting. And like the previous chair, I would also like to just say some concerns around the cost structure, given the difficulty that a lot of people actually find themselves in at the moment with regards to financial difficulties. But at the end of the day, we have to make the most of what we've got. So hopefully these will be successful going forward. And that's and enjoy the meeting while you're there. So cheers. Right, Group Managers report, please. Murray Washington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora, and welcome to the inaugural meeting. The report is there. I'll just make a couple of comments on it. Into the background, the second paragraph, this is actually straight out of the terms of reference. I understand the purpose of the committee. During the last 8 months, we have been through a major restructure. So the infrastructure and property committee, property groups have been restructured and brought together, and that structure is based around the 4 heads of and Murray and Gareth are here today. Our lawn is in Auckland, and I'll talk about that later. And we are in the process of recruitment for the head of capital works, getting to the shortlisting stage at the moment. The reports on the agenda today follow the previous template that you're used to. In the future, I'm looking to shift those around to match our stream of work, our responsibility stream within our group. In addition, I just note that what I've now renamed as the Facilities and Open Spaces report, which used to be the property report, has a lot of the pure property aspects with Rob managers have been taken out of this because I expect they will go to another committee. But Rob's here today to talk about anything on those residuals. Focus on the future, certainly want to keep it a high level. We want to talk about government policy changes and the impact on Selwyn, submissions, strategy development and consultation, and regional council issues, and particularly to focus on consenting, and also to be able to report regularly on third-party funded projects such as the Tourism Infrastructure Fund, Better Off Funding, and transport choices. Now, yeah, that's the goal, is to keep it quite high level in the future, and also to report more on exception and on performance measure rather than making it a conversational piece. So,
thanks, Murray, for your report. Are there any comments that people wish to highlight with regards to the manager's report? Or I have a mover and seconder for adoption. Sorry, Sam?
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction to the meeting and the reports that are going to come through. I just note that our lawn and the emergency management stuff have all been away. Serving during the meeting today, will there be an update on our support to the North Island at the moment?
Yeah, I've got on the agenda of the item that Al was going to present verbally. That's item 16. I will do that. Thanks where we're at.
Any other comments with regards to the manager's report? All right, I'm just coming back. Can I have a move for the recommendation, please, that the committee receives the group manager's report for information? Malcolm and Grant. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Okay, the next item is tab 8, and it's the adoption of the terms of reference for the committee.
Madam Chair, in the interest of finishing the meeting in the same timeframe you suggested, I suggest that those 3 are adopted with the same amendments as the previous meeting.
Okay. So just for point of clarification, with the change on the other agenda item on page 32 of this agenda, we have a correction to the karakia timatanga and the karakia whakamutanga with regards to taking out the wording as a prayer. So
Chair, deems it appropriate, I'll move in that direction to save time. So it's the same report.
Yeah, took the words. I was going to make that suggestion, so thanks for jumping in and doing that. For in fact, you said 3 reports, Councillor.
because it includes the meeting schedule.
Up to 4, and you got a deal.
Okay, so I have a mover from Councillor Grant Miller and Shane Epiha that tab 8, 9 and 10 and 11 with the accepted change on page 32 all be approved by the committee. Or endorsed by the committee. So can all in favour say aye? Aye. Carried. Right.
Madam Chair, I wonder, just while I'm at the top table, can I just make an observation? Both yourself and the Chair this morning made reference to the cost of the committee's processes that were running for the first 6 months. Can I just give you absolute assurance that from a management perspective, we are firstly focusing on maximising Wednesdays. So we've always had a line through Wednesdays, whether it was councils or briefing meetings or workshops. Generally, the golden rule was don't make plans for Wednesdays. We are reviewing our internal processes to make sure, noting our workload, we're about maximising efficiencies and effectiveness, and also we'll be reviewing the cost against enhanced decision making. So that is uppermost in our mind. And as I say, we do have processes internally to review that, so that when yourself and the respective chairs have their review in July, that we will be in a position to be able to answer questions around cost, effectiveness and efficiency.
Thank you very much. That's appreciated. Right, we have a number of reports on the agenda, and the first report is going to be the Water Services Report, tab 12, and that's going to be presented by Murray England.
Right. Good afternoon, everybody. So the Five Waters report. I'll say apology from Elaine. It's probably not an apology, but she's on maternity leave, so she won't be here today, but she passes on her wishes. So I think on the public agenda, we're starting on page 132, and I'm talking about the Three Waters reform. So part of the Three Waters reform process, chief executives have now been appointed for 3 of the entities, entity A, B and C. Entity D is yet to have a chief executive appointed, but they're working on that and they expect to have one shortly. There's been 2 acts to help enable this reform. The Water Services Economic Efficiency and Consumer Protection Bill and the Water Services Legislation Bill. So the former has been circulated to councillors and that was submitted on Saturday last week, and the Water Services Legislation Bill is also being circulated to councillors and it will be submitted Friday to meet those timeframes. The work program is still going full steam ahead, so councils received quite a few RFIs and we're continuing to provide data to the DIA to help them with the reform process and transferring through to the new water entity. So I'll move on. I'll carry on through, Deborah, till the end of the report for questions.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
So in terms of chlorine exemptions, as council knows, we applied for a Kaihat's, the first submission to be made in New Zealand. We had a draft report from Taumata Rai coming back, which was to recommend decline. Council had to provide feedback within a statutory timeframe, which we did prior to Christmas. There's no statutory timeframe for Taumata Rai to provide the final report, and we are yet to receive that. But once we do, we'll bring that back to this committee. Along with that, we are doing some preliminary works at Kaihat's around investigations on leakage and aquifer parameters to help cover some issues that were raised in the preliminary report. But we won't go too far down the track until we get the final report to make sure we're not spending money unwisely. Temporary chlorination over the page. So our final 3 schemes of Leeston, Prebbleton and Giles Road now have chlorination. There are 3 sites within some of our large schemes which don't have chlorine added, so some parts of our large supplies remain chlorine free, but we're working on that to rectify that. Some upgrades are required, so diligently working on that process. Water resources, it has been dry, but it's not dry today, but it has been very dry. In the back of this report, there's a number of graphs showing the groundwater levels at our bore sites and how they're responding to that dry weather. So finally, and this is a reasonably short report, we just got some, I suppose, good news stories about our capital works program. The first one at the bottom of page 133 is a third and final clarifier at the Pines Wastewater Treatment Plant. Each clarifier provides around about 20,000 population equivalents capacity. And so the third one will take us up to and over 60,000 population equivalents for that particular treatment process. This project was done in conjunction with Cord, our contractor, And one of the highlights was the early contractor engagement and the process of working through the capital works formations themselves. Over the page, we have water treatment plants or water upgrades. So we have an upgrade of water treatment at Prebbleton, and there's a picture of the site clearance happening there in that image. There's a number of water main renewals occurring at the moment in Prebbleton, particularly Blakes Road and Springs Road. And another big project in terms of renewals is renewals of reservoirs. So we have a new reservoir in Springfield and Castle Hill, and Bluff Road, Leaston, Dunsandel Road are 2 additional reservoirs that are being renewed and upgraded and constructed at the moment. So over the page, we have a picture of those. The picture, figure 5, is the Castle Hill. So we've got the 2 original timber tanks shown there in the background, the foreground, and then in the background is a new, it's a glass reinforced steel tank. And over time, the other 2 will be also renewed. One tank will probably remain wooden, and it's a raw water storage, and it goes through to the treated storage in the new tanks. Also Elizabeth Allen Drive, which is the next image down on the left-hand side, so that's in West Melton. And Town Motus, that's down feeding Fisherman's Point down by the lake, has a new treatment plant upgrade, and the tanks shown there. Over the page is Claremont. So Claremont's a small scheme, one that we're looking at applying for a chlorine exemption quite early on, but there were some defects in the reservoir, and it shows those defects now being repaired. And so that's probably one of the next exemption processes that we on the cards. So I'm probably happy to take questions.
Any questions with regards to the report, please? Elizabeth?
Hi, you just referred to the piece here about Tomato Arawai, looking at the Rakaia Huts process. We're looking at the Rakaia Huts process before we continue with any more exemptions. I just wanted to know, what does that actually mean? What's it involving? Is there currently an attempt to rectify the issues that were notified in the exemption process when it didn't comply? And what's that sort of time frame looking like before we continue with other exemptions? Thank you.
Yeah, so we applied for the exemption. Taumata Arawai carried out site visits with staff and produced a draft report. Staff then had the opportunity to comment on that and particularly find any areas of what we believe errors or inconsistencies. So we provided that prior to Christmas, and we're now waiting for Taumata Arawai's final report and recommendation to come through. So there are some things that we can do prior to that report coming back, and so those are investigations. One is around groundwater and the risk of virus contamination in that groundwater source. So we're talking to ESR at the moment about what work they can do for us. Another one is around leakage rates for the network. So for Rakaia Huts, it's around about 17%, which sounds a lot, but I suppose those caution percentages are quite misleading. So a small percent on a small number is still a small number, whereas a small number on a big number is actually could be still a big number. So it's relative to the size of the scheme, but we are doing some more work to work out where that small leakage rates could be coming from. So that's what we're working on. Things that we're things like covering a roof structure, for example. That's something that's a reasonable capital expense where we're not sure if that's required or recommended. We have lodged an exemption application for Spring Stin, but Taumata Arawai hasn't started processing that until they finish the.
Next was Lydia. Thank you.
Thanks. I'd just like to say thanks for the level of information in this report. It's really helpful, and I really value the in-depth reporting with the images attached. And it gives a really great understanding of the work that's being completed across the district. I just was wondering how we're progressing with holding tanks in Hororata, and have we heard from ECAN yet? As we have ratepayers that aren't receiving their allocated water, which is not great in the dry conditions that are not great.
I'll probably report fully at the next meeting on Hororata, so I can do that. But we have identified the site, and I'm not quite sure where our consultation's at, but we are consulting with the ratepayers about that location. So funding's secured and ready to go. With ECAN, it's a bit of an ongoing story with that one, so perhaps I'll leave it so I can write it down succinctly, but we are trying to apply for a resource scheme to extract more water. We're looking at moving water from the water basin tape just below our site and transferring the allocation up to the water supply intake. So we're not taking any more water, but we're just changing where we take it from and what the use is. Yeah, so there's been some technical difficulties with environment chemistry over that, but we're resolving those.
Next is Sam.
Hey, thanks for the report. Questions around wastewater and the Duffield Cooley pipeline connections of the send and the couplings. Is the development community connected at the toppings? Conversations recently been completed down Craig Group there, and as the flows all the way down now into our treatment site down here.
Yeah, so Darfield's ready to go. Camp Pump Wastewater. We've actually chosen not to at this time, and the reason for that is it's 26 k's of pipe, and with only a number of houses currently flushing and going down there, I'm not sure if it'll actually make it to the other end. So at this stage, we're letting it build up and we're trucking it between. But once that critical mass, we reach that, then we'll start sending it down the pipeline. So we're all connected. We're accepting wastewater in both Kiwi and Darfield. Development community has received the pipeline very well. I think when we first started, notified we were putting the pipeline up, houses were being sold with the title, buy a section here, surge provided, which is not something you normally see advertised for a sale of a section. But yes, it's been quite a rapid uptake of sections and development in Darfield, I think, because of that wastewater line. And we're talking to further developers to extend the pipeline further up into Darfield to meet their developments as well.
Great. And flooding in Springfield, the days were held in Springfield late last year with the community talking through what the options might look like. What's the next steps for that piece of work and what might we see presented to us? But obviously with ECAN looking for their investment into river protection and flood protection works.
Yeah, that one I'm going to have to hold off till next meeting. I'm not sure where we're at with that. I'll come back to you if that's okay, Sam.
Thank you.
Bob.
As far as Horata goes, has there been any council discussions with the Glaskin and Mike and that they did a paper for the council on what they saw as alleviating the water flooding problems at Horata? Was 3 or 4 months ago they did a report, and I just wondered if we followed up on it or where it was at.
I should hope we have, but I'll have to come back to you on that one as well. I have, sorry.
That was all. Thank you.
My apologies, Malcolm. You were next in line.
It's okay, Madam Chair. First of all, I'd like you to pass through a bouquet to Cord for the work they've done on Blake's Road. They did a wonderful job under very hot conditions, and it's a job well done in a timely fashion with the school being reopened just in time. They finished just in time. But the concern I have is that work was done in an environment where you had modern curb and channel. And the next 3 streets to be done are Norris Street, William Street and Charles Street. They're the oldest streets in Prebbleton. The existing infrastructure in the ground is deep channel curb and old curb. It's fractured in most places. The road shoulder heading to that curb is bald of tar seal in most places. And I'm very concerned as to whether consideration has been made into what is going to be done in the patch-ups after they've dug the holes, because it is not a modern environment. It is an environment from the 40s, and it's in a pretty poor state of repair.
Okay, we'll take note of that particular attention. What we are trying to do, unfortunately, in this case, make sure we put the pipes through before we actually upgrade the roads, which is the first step. But we'll definitely pay attention to the reinstatement and how that.
Yeah, the upgrading would be lovely. I hope you're promising that.
No.
Right, Grant.
Small negative and a big positive will be just been the chlorination. Public level of communication from water users has reduced. Not to me, will be the response I'm still getting is whether that's a flashpoint or not, but ranging from university academics to the man on the street, they're still very anti it in my world. But moving on to the new sewage pipeline, we always turn up the shiny suits to the opening of community centres and things like that. I think we should have one of the fundamental changes for Selwyn. I think we should have a proper opening of the sewage line, get up the Cutter River and actually celebrate it, because as far as actually transforming Selwyn, this is one of the major things we've done. Yeah. So, I don't know, Murray, we're authorising you to
Yeah,
put on some sort of budget.
very good idea. I think we'd probably wait till we put the first material down the pipe, but we'll look at that. Like
It is a flagship project. I volunteered to flush the day that sent it to Ralston.
It is a flagship project, and it will be around. I think this year we start after 2 weeks, so we'll celebrate it accordingly. You know what we're like, we're pretty good. We first one got, we go on to the next one, we're not great at celebrating our successes, but
Well, this is a major celebration.
Councillor Miller, would you actually like to move in that direction and have a seconder?
The start, and I think it's appropriate that some sort of recognition is done. It is fundamentally one of the biggest things we've done in a long time. Yeah, from the structure.
Great. Okay, Shane.
Madam Chair, thank you very much, and thank you very much, Murray, for your report. A couple of bouquets from me. One for your draft submission for the water services legislation. I think it was fantastic, and you've noted the concerns and also the solutions. So well done on that. Appreciate that. Secondly, on the health and safety record for the page, Rosebud treatment plant or zero. To the team on that. Page 131. It just mentions that staff are currently waiting for future direction from Three Waters. I presume that's not idle. It's just that you're waiting for a direction. 132 suggests that there may be chlorine-free schemes. I'll just bring that up. The seems that these sites will be part of a key increased monitoring to assist with managing risks with our water supplies and should help with future chlorine-free applications. Or applications is probably.
Yeah, so it's just the idea there is to have, and we have this already, we measure pressure at a number of points in our network. So everywhere we have a wastewater pump station, we've got telemetry and SCADA. We also monitor the pressure of our water supply there, so we can see if there's any drops in pressure which could cause backflow or anything like that. So these monitoring sites now are adding additional things like pH and pressure and a whole range of parameters, so we can see if there's anything changed in the water quality of the network, which could mean there's a contamination or something like that. So it's providing certainty to our ratepayers, but also to tell much other way that we can manage these supplies chlorine-free.
Thank you. And just lastly, page 134, Springfield, currently confident that the reservoir that exists that's up at the moment is sufficient for an event should something happen. I see that you're moving on now with the second reservoir. So the question is, are you confident that the reservoir that currently exists is fit for purpose for the local Z?
Yeah, so there's a number of actions we've taken for Springfield. The first one was to put that emergency pipeline from Sheffield up to Springfield so we can pump flows during the height of the event. So that's active and live, that works. Storage is always going to help. But the third thing, which I think is the most important, would be the treatment plant upgrade, which is a membrane treatment plant, which will bring those costings through for the annual plan for approval.
Thank you.
Okay. No further comments on the report? I'd just like to note on page 137, staff said that they would appreciate feedback on the subject matter and the level of. Is everybody happy with what's been provided on this report? Say aye. Thank you.
Sorry, but I did have one more thing I was going to mention. We just have our Land Drainage Committee meeting, and maybe you want to talk to that, but highly successful. We talked about preparing catchment management plans and doing some other investigative work. So just to say that that committee is alive and active and doing a really good job.
Okay, thanks for that update. Can I have a mover and a seconder that this report be received for information? Thank you, Malcolm and Lydia. All in favour say aye. Aye. Carried. Right, now we're on to, thanks Murray for your report. Page 143, we have the transportation delivery report update, and that's from Gareth Morgan. Thanks, Gareth.
Yes, thank you. I'll often say it probably shouldn't be me, but I seem to inherit this regular feature of presenting the transportation report because I'm not sure how many of you are aware. We lost Graham at the beginning of the new year to Waka Katahi.
Yes.
Yep, he's gone to Nelson to manage the one of the maintenance contracts up there. So we're currently managerless in Roding, and we are actively trying to recruit, etc. As the chair mentioned, this is the first report new committee. We follow the old process. So there's a lot of information provided within this report in terms of status updates and bits and pieces. I'll take them as read and happy to take questions. But before I do, I didn't get a chance in this report as things were unfolding. I feel it's probably a time to start to signal some of the realities around significant budget pressures that we face. And these are not budget pressures which are unique and local to us. These are national budgetary pressures, particularly in the roading space. And I'll touch on that a wee bit further very quickly as I go through this. But what it means to us is, in summary, we've got around $14 million per year for the entire delivery of the roading network contract. When you consider out of that, we have faced this year with cost fluctuations, as has everybody else. It's impacted us to around $2 million. And there was a huge sigh of relief last week when the fuel relief scheme stayed in place as well. Otherwise, that would have impacted us even further. Added to that, you recall we had a significant, seems probably inappropriate at this time, considering what's happening in the North Island. We had our own weather event in July last year. In fact, we had three of them, 3 successive Tuesdays in a row. Our weather event claim went into Waka Kotahi for that at just over $1.8 million. So there's another $2 million. What that means is that we are going to expend our $14 million budget on $10 million worth of work. That's the reality. A budget which we already knew was tight. We always want more funding. We always want to do more, but we've lost $4 million of that budget to things which are not on the ground as such. I said those inflation cost increases also starting to hit obviously our reseal program and hit our reseal program quite hard. We set out at the aspiration at the beginning of the year, it was 75 kilometres of our road network would be resealed. That was reforecast in September down to 45 kilometres. And at the end of November, that was reforecast down to 26 kilometres of network. That's all we can afford. Pre-seal or pre-reseal repairs have become more extensive. They've become larger. They've become more costly components of work than they ever have before in the past 12 months, consuming around about 80% of our sealed network budget just to do the pre-seal repairs. Weather events have impacted that. Saturation has impacted that. Greater deterioration, potholes, hotspots, they all contribute. It's worth noting as well, when we mentioned weather claims, that weather claims at the time are made on what you see at the time. The deterioration from the weather event to our roading network is slow, it's unseen, and it's many months before it comes to light, which is now hitting us now after last winter's weather events. Because obviously it's not visible at the time of the claim. So what does this all mean? At the moment, it doesn't mean anything. We haven't enacted anything. We are managing to the budget currently, but if we continue to manage to the budget, I'm just starting to signal that we may get to a position where some requests may not be delivered. Some work may be put on hold, and we may have to turn around to our contractor and administer the minimum contract delivery that we're contracted to. They might have to park up some of their resources for a couple of months until the next year's funding comes along. As I said at the beginning, this is not a contractor issue. This is not a delivery issue. It's a national funding issue. And we're not alone in this conversation. And I'm sure you all would have seen press articles from various other local authorities in recent weeks around the country saying the same thing. I'll just finish on saying, just to put some further context on that, we got some very large single big ticket items which have just popped up as such. White Cliffs Road, for instance, there's a large, very aged, very deep, failed 4-meter deep culvert which needs replacing on Whitecliffs Road. That culvert alone is a minimum of $350,000. And the final one is you may have seen some correspondence. I'm sure many of you may have heard about it. The Waimakariri Gorge Bridge, to put it in plain English, is kind of in a poor state, stuffed at the moment. The deck has failed. The deck was replaced, I understand, about 11 years ago with the cheapest low-cost option, which had a 25-year design life. It's got 4 temporary plates currently on the bridge. They are temporary repairs, and at some point, those have cost $150,000. And at some point, the deck of the bridge is going to have to be replaced, the cost of which is somewhere between, depending which option you choose, $2 to $3 million. But obviously, it's a significant access way into the district, and it serves a lot of economy, especially up in that area, and something we're going to have to attend to. So, yeah. There are some measures in place, temporary measures as well, to look at how we slow, especially some of the heavy traffic that hits that bridge, and they hit it at some speed from both sides of the gorge. And we are exploring installing some sort of speed control measures, infrastructure to prevent them from entering that bridge at full pace, i.e. speed humps or something like that. But that's all underway. Questions?
Thank you for the delivery of some important news. Sam.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the update. It'd be great to have the things that you have spoken to us today written down and shared with us. It would also could also form part of communications to the Minister around funding for transport to sit alongside all of the work that's going to need to go into the North Island repairs. There's all the business as usual costs that are sitting here, and we know that Ashburton and others are going through similar problems. So you're looking forward to seeing that. The case for the Waimakariri Bridge as well is a case of national investment and the ability for the South Islands to function with multiple accesses across its major rivers as part of the case for Ashburton, as well as the second bridge for the flow of the town. It's the same across the Rangitata and thinking about the inland route and the coastal route. And it should be no different for the Waimakariri, thinking about the inland route and the route to the outside. So I'd be interested in knowing what communication's gone on with Kotahi, and if I can add anything to that. And when they are in here with us, we've had a lot of focus on flyover and safety, which is important, but continued investment from them with us on other large infrastructure projects is going to need to be had going forward too. So thank you for the update.
Shane. Oh, sorry. Do you want to reply to that?
I'll certainly follow all the detail. We'll have a clearer picture on the budget, certainly by the next committee meeting, and that will be a big component of the report next week.
Shane.
Good, Madam Chair. You go, Sam. That's excellent. I was just going to ask about shared cost on that one bridge. Thank you, Gareth, for the report. Geez, I thought we were the ones that breeze, but you've certainly hit us with a realisation of it appreciating assets. So thank you very much for the report, and certainly gives us scope for the concentration and focus on what we need to. How many months? I guess I feel bad now because I was going to ask you what's going on with some smaller low cost projects, but I'll hit you with it anyway. The low cost low LCLR. Do you have an update on the Leaston High Street Lake Road low cost safety and road refreshing of the paint there? We've had a number of near misses, and it's been going on now for maybe a year, I think, I put that. And it was Craig Hunter was looking after it. I wish him all the best. And I think Andrew had reported to me last time on the continuation of looking at that. There was just going to be some freshening up of a white pedestrian crossing and some other parts there with the Splitter Islands, and also Pulteney Street in Leaston. There's been some communication back and forth, and perhaps a Splitter Island to stop people from speeding around and speeding into the school, into the primary school there. But other than that, mate, thank you very much for the report.
It's short. I know it wasn't the best news. We are managing it. Be sure we are managing it right now. And nothing's been put on hold. I'll follow up on the Leeston High Street. I am aware that they did do should have done some of the asphalt upgrades. Yep, that should have been taken care of, some of the repairs, but I'll follow up on the line markings and everything.
Right, Grant.
Thanks, Gareth. A range of issues. I'll start with the easy ones. I suppose the Springston Ralston curb and channel, is the MOE funding for that? Or is that as the ratepayers or someone picking up that? Because it appeared that should have been part of the design or DC collected from the school.
The Springston Ralston College, I believe, came through from Waka Kotahi in a school frontage project.
Oh, cool.
Funding.
Good answer. Thank you for that. Second is on page 143 about the Trices Road, Tosrel Road intersection upgrade and design. And probably it's good for Malcolm and Prebbleton, what's happened since the speed reduction and the difficulty in getting through Prebbleton? Heavy traffic are now using the Longstaff Road, Tosrel's Road intersection. It may be a higher priority because they are actually using that as the bypass. They go up to Marshes Road and across to the roundabout to get through. Do we maintain Marshes Road and that, or is that a Christchurch City Council road? Where's the boundary? Is it the boundary?
That is the boundary. Marshes is the boundary.
Because the Marshes Road now on that Horsell side is just destroyed by truck traffic on the Corbs and Kearns. If you get a chance, one of the inspection team will have a look and see. But that is basically the de facto bypass now. So maybe the resources into Tosville might be better. Prices might be better in Longstaffs. Waimakaruru Gorge, I'm with Sam. I added on the list of the state highway roads that we're going to make from local to state highways, isn't it? Isn't that got to be the thing to do, wouldn't it? That one seemed to be a state highway. I would thought.
Have we had a response yet?
Responses, they're going to start the process this year, isn't it?
I think the response is they're looking to go the other way and we're pushing uphill. But so I think we need to look at it as a project for the bridge rather than the actual road as a state highway.
I'd say it might be one on your electoral list of electoral issues for Selwyn in the election. Would be a good one.
Well, I just add there, I don't think they've done a state highway review for a number of years, and they've given no indication they're intending to do another one.
And so the last thing, I'm purely into advocacy here. Gareth, you were talking about projects being postponed or paused. Please don't put Perryman's Road in that list because already the staff, I'll give you the feedback from the community. They feel that the staff and the council have actively tried to subvert the annual plan decision. That's the feeling. So you're sort of starting from the behind the eight ball before you get the community consultation. So there's no point hiding the truth. That's what the truth they feel.
The assurance I can give you, councillor, is that Perryman's Road is going ahead. Projects have not been put on hold. The news that I've talked about in terms of budget realities are impacting the maintenance activities that we've got. Anything which is a distinct project and funded, they're still going ahead. Perryman's Road is going ahead, and there is a meeting this week with the communications people about finalising the public consultation process that has to go out.
I think the feedback from the community is be open to change from the position you are now and closing it.
Sorry, did you say the community wants to close it?
That was very quick. Okay. Any further issues, Grant?
That's it, thank you.
Okay. Are you happy with the responses given so far?
Oh, sorry, yes.
To your questions.
Yes.
Okay. The next Nicole was before Sophie, sorry. So Nicole's next.
Talk to.
And then Bob and then Sophie.
Okay, so yes, I'm next. Thank you. Good to see some of these projects, the low cost, low risk ones, some school frontage upgrades. There has been questions raised regarding Clearview with the quay crossing with the two zebra crossings. Apparently there's potentially a bit of issue with traffic backing back, but it's hard
I haven't had a look, but it's hard to tell whether the Springston-Wollaston Road still had the roadworks going on it the other day.
Now, and we've heard that. And Mike, whilst we also don't have a schools road safety advisor,
Yes,
resigned and left as well, as long as Graham and Hayden. Mike is taking up that one because there is a question to say now at Clearview you have 2 raised platforms. Why do you need a quay crossing in the middle? So you've got 3 stops along that road.
But there's also the quay crossing is more of a managed one, which is easier when the traffic is heavier. And that's another issue that's been brought up about the one opposite that goes between the Aquatic Centre and the Foster Park, with this college kids apparently just wandering across continuously. So there's 2 ways you could be looking at this. I mean, it's a safe way to cross and the kids are actually getting themselves there. So it's the issue is car drivers being impatient, and there are other routes that you can drive around if you really need to. And also good to see, so the parts completed with the Fairhurst and going through to Manor Drive, and the work with Markham Way doing the shared path there. One thing though, with the consequence of doing those projects, is we've lost some trees, which has been a bit fraught at times. I'm just wondering, like going forward, and this may sit in another committee that I might be chairing, regarding climate change, we should be looking at more actively, I think, about trees in that regard. And if we're taking down trees, are we putting trees somewhere else, or how are we going with trees, particularly street plantings going forward, and actually having enough room for trees, which is an issue I think that we've got with our size of our berms and such like. It's not a question to, it was a general statement, unless you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I can do. Certainly they will be looked at, but
You want to answer Nicole's question, and Murray will help answer one of the questions as well.
well, obviously the tree conversation will continue, and whether or not trees have a place in the road reserves are a bigger issue.
Murray?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. Clearview, I travel that route from Foster Park down to Logan Road quite often. The problem has been the detour from Wollaston Road, and everybody trying to turn out right from Broadlands Drive. The actual pedestrian crossing don't appear to be causing a problem. I'm conscious, and I don't think there was too much of feedback on Markham Way with the trees, but I'm conscious that if we want shared footpaths, sometimes trees and shared footpaths don't. So it's one or the other. Or it's just something we're thinking about is, do we have a deliberate policy if we take a tree out, we replace it with a tree somewhere else?
And that's what I was
as a clear policy to help with the environment. And that might be something to talk to Tim about.
Yeah, and that's what I was sort of alluding to. So it's good that you recognise that, and that can sit with the other planning and climate change committee would be a good one to look at, I think. Yeah.
Sorry, and picking up on, there was a question about Fairhurst Place as well. Fairhurst is complete, but there is still some work to do there, and there's still some cleanup to do. So there's a lot of questions still going through, but it does look good.
No, I've been down there and it does. It's definitely a good, and it's good linkage through, and people are definitely using it as opposed to the only other option was going on the road or just on the verge. So it was definitely needed. So thank you. Next speaker is Bob.
Yes, the culvert in Whitecliff Road that you were talking about, is that Black Neck Bend? Do you know? It's a deep culvert, because one of the problems is that we've been told in the past that it had a heritage status. If it is that one, and it wasn't to be touched, so it's just something to think about in the future.
Well, it's a piece of steel 4 meters deep in the ground, Bob, and there's not much left of it. So.
Okay.
Next speaker is Sophie.
Yeah. Kia ora. Please don't leave.
Last man standing.
So I'll start with a couple of comments before I get to my question. Clearview along Broadlands Drive from a cyclist perspective is definitely safer. So used to be subjected to people literally running out all over the place. Now they're actually using zebra crossings, which is absolutely fantastic. Teenagers not looking where they're going is probably a teenager thing, and got to educate our kids. And trees do definitely have a place on the road reserve. I mean, in terms of the change in temperature, for anybody walking underneath them, for dogs, for people, and just generally encouraging active transport. To take one out, replace it somewhere else would be great, but if we can maintain them on the road reserve wherever possible would be fantastic. My main question was, there's a couple of mentions about Road to Zero workshops, and one of them is to do with NLTP with the road safety team, and then something that we're getting a briefing early next month, which I know is mostly Road to Zero and speed management, but in terms of maintenance of roads and the cost of that going up, I'm sure Waka Kotahi are very well aware of that. But at the same time, is this a good opportunity for us to get the sort of figures that you were talking about earlier together and make sure that we pummel them with it, basically, because that does have an impact on safety quite massively. And I just trying to get as many opportunities to say, don't drop it again, put it up. Thanks.
What probably didn't say opportunity in terms of road safety, Sophie. Good news is it's not all bad news. Good news is that we have appointed a new road, and it's a new position as a dedicated road safety engineer. And we have somebody arriving early in March from over on the coast that's relocating here to take up that role. And in the short term, Mike is taking care of all the road safety conversations with Waka Kotahi, Road to Zero program, speed management plans and everything. So it's very much still up for.
Thank you. Are we feeding in all those figures into LTP requests and stuff? Thanks.
Next is Elizabeth.
Hi, my question is partly answered by what you've just said, where someone's arriving in March and they're dedicated to road safety. So what I talk about in 5.2, you talk about the intersections, talk about driver behaviour and analysing intersections for the risk and cost of safety interventions. How are the intersections currently analysed? Is there a particular stream for public input into concerning like one particular method for the public to be inputting into concerning intersections? One of the things that I've noted is that there's quite a large amount of intersections where the paint has worn off. It's incredibly dangerous because you're coming in and yes, there's the stop signs on the side of the road, but for some people the focus is straight ahead. And without any paint to guide them that there's a stop, it just looks like it's a follow through. And I know that we've had a lot of deaths in Selwyn. I think we're one of the highest rural death rates, aren't we, for intersections or something? But yeah, I just wanted to ask whose role is it to be, and how is it for the council to keep on top of all the paint wearing off all these intersections?
It's ours, and there is a level of service that we aim to maintain in terms of the paint. If the encouragement would be always, if anybody sees any defect out on the road, snap, send, solve it, send it in to us and get it repaired. We do have inspectors out on the road, so our expectation would be if they see something, they report it through, and we'll get the contractor to attend to that. You know, those things are covered in the base contract, so just like potholes are covered in the base contract. We can afford them.
So I put through a snap, send, solve at an intersection with no paint, and as far as I know, that still hasn't been remedied, and that's been quite a few weeks.
Okay, you say it's been followed up?
I followed it up via snap, send, solve.
And nobody's got back to you? Okay, I'll look into service request systems. I'll find your snap, send, solve. I'll contact you.
Right, thanks, Liz. Next is Malcolm.
Yes, I noticed in your routine maintenance that you're looking at trialling the red road mark patches for stop ahead. Fantastic. I don't know where you're looking to trial them, but we have one intersection which has continual collisions. There was a bad one there just last week. That is the intersection of Hamptons Road and Springs Road, where we have 18,000 cars a day, in excess of 18,000 cars a day going through. And the driver behaviour is such that you can sit on the side of the road and watch people not stopping going through that intersection. So perhaps that might be a good place to start, because the new roundabout is not scheduled for 26, 27 and hasn't got final funding approval. So anything we can do in the meantime for that particular intersection to make drivers more aware would be a great thing. And Councillor Miller mentioned to me earlier today that the Hampton Road intersections, the tree coverage as you come onto Shands Road at the other end of one of the properties which we own as a council, we are putting in a roundabout. We could have a look at that. It's a little bit of tree trimming in the meantime, just to make it easier for people to see oncoming traffic would be a wonderful thing.
Right. Malcolm.
Grant.
Sorry to have a second go, but there's just a couple of one things. It's probably topical at the moment. We brought it up last year about HEB's off-season maintenance of culverts and drains, getting it ready for the winter ahead. I just again, I'm not familiar with you guys, but there's after the last flood event, there was a significant culvert issue in Birches Road, which I've referred on to staff. And as yet, that still hasn't been remediated before the new winter's coming. So I'm just a bit concerned that culvert might not be in isolation. There may be other culverts which have blocked or other issues. So I'm guessing HEBs to do an annual culvert audit or something to that effect. I just hope they're just asking that to be completed. The second issue was raised, and this is again big picture stuff, by our visit to the Lincoln University, seeing increasing growth of students in Ralston. And Sophie confirmed that the current cycleway route is extremely dangerous, of having to turn down Springs Road and ride down Springs Road to Ralston, and they would prefer to see it, if I guess, dare I say, another one almost down Springston Ralston Road or Whedon's Road, which is a more direct route to university and also plugs into the Springston Ralston cycleway to make it safer for students commuting to Lincoln University. So not immediate work on, just a suggestion to look to in the future, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, with no further queries, I'm sure we've given Gareth and Murray a long list to actually report back on. So appreciate the interest from the committee, and looking forward to some of those reports coming later on. Gareth, would you like to make some comments?
Yeah, thank you. One thing, apologies, I've probably failed to touch on in terms of the report, and it is something good. We're not looking to reopen a debate on it, but it's good news. You touched on it kind of with all the traffic management impacts you've seen around Rolleston with various bits and pieces. We are currently trying to put a snapshot in the report. We are working on trying to get a zoomable in and out cluster map the public can use and see, and it's easily accessible, which captures all the road disruptions around the place. So that and the ultimate aim is for that to actually map through to phone maps. So you don't go to a website, you just map app on your phone, and that leads you through that. So hopefully it will take a while to get there and get that all working. We should get there.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I have a mover and a seconder for receiving the transport delivery monthly update report for February 2023? Elizabeth, seconder? Dan, all in favour? Aye. Carried. Hey. Our next report is tab 14 on page 149 of the agenda, and it is going to be presented by Andrew Boyd.
Afternoon, everyone. I won't go through the entire report. I'll just touch on a few of the key issues, key points. So firstly, quite exciting, Rediscover Education Centre at the transfer station is close to officially opening. We're now taking bookings. I think it looks amazing, and we've developed some really great collateral and great programs. So yeah, really excited about that. I believe that the council is heading through the area next Monday. I don't know how fast that trip will be, so I would like to arrange a time to have you come through and actually come through inside the building. So look to arrange that in March. Reuse shop consent is in and being processed. Hopefully that will be awarded shortly, not awarded, approved, with construction to start in the second quarter. We have been in discussions with Waste Management for quite some time about an electric vehicle that they had quite some time ago in Christchurch. It was actually one of the first ones in the country. I think it was the first curbside electric truck in the country. That's since been doing bits and pieces in different parts of the country. However, it's now been brought back to Christchurch. It's been retrofitted with much denser battery pack, and will be deployed on predominantly cell and contract, and focusing on Rolleston, Lincoln, Prebbleton areas, just because of the proximity of those to the waste management yard. So yeah, quite excited about that. They've invested heavily in infrastructure on their site to enable truck charging, which is quite a different ballgame from normal vehicle charging for electric vehicles. And just finally, probably just touch on a couple of things. One was general waste contamination and recycling continues to remain low. And I attended a meeting with other councils yesterday, and you know, some of them are still really struggling with contamination levels. Timaru's running at 22% contamination in their recycling. Christchurch has really pulled theirs back. It's now about 10%. Yeah, we're doing okay, contamination wise, consistently. And then lastly, we have done a swap audit on our curbside waste bins to try and get a good understanding of what's making up those bins. First time in almost 10 years. Interesting reading. Still plenty of opportunity for improvement, and those are things that we'll tackle in upcoming long-term plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Elizabeth?
Hi, is there a chance that we could be sent a wee bit of a briefing on the audit that you got from the bins, just an indication, because I'd be very interested to see that, just a baseline. And also with the contamination, checking on the bins, was that where you stickered them so the house owners were able to see, be notified what they've done wrong and things like that, or were you just checking for yourselves?
Yeah, so I'll to the next meeting, I'll bring a sort of a summary of that swap audit to the committee. And in terms of the contamination audits, we were a little bit sneaky. We actually stopped doing audits last June. So we engaged Waste Management to do that for a period of time, for about 6 months. And we didn't make any noise about that finishing. Which I still think is the right move, but our contamination levels have remained consistently low. So my thoughts were that things would start to ramp up again, but they hadn't. So we've just sat tight on that. We do get samples taken from about 4 or 5 loads of our recycling when it hits the resorting facility, and then they run through that and they analyse how much aluminium, paper, cardboard, steel, and we get a breakdown including the general waste component. And across the month, they'll give us an average of our contaminated percentage. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Nicole?
Thanks, Andrew. Just So you're commenting about the reuse shop that the new H1 building installation rules have added considerable expense for the building cladding. So has that just recently come in? Because I'm just wondering, so the reconnect, that hasn't affected the education centre. I mean, that was a building that was relocated there as opposed to being building a building. But what is the difference? And what sort of figures are you talking about? Is you considerable expense? I mean, you're looking to do value engineering the process, but what sort of expense are we talking about? What scale?
Yep. So the H1 installation rules came into the building code on 1 November. And look, they're a good thing. They just not great from a cost point of view. So we had to increase the thickness of our insulated panels that we're using on the cladding. And yes, you're correct. The education centre is made up of old classroom blocks relocated and refurbished. So they fell under, they were consented originally for this area. Any requirement to meet that new standard. And then in terms of cost, it's been interesting that costs have fluctuated wildly. So some costs have come down considerably, and other costs have gone up considerably. In terms of the cladding, I think about 220k effect. Yep.
So if you're relocating a building now, like we had done for the education centre, would that still need to have come under these new building installation rules? No, thank you.
Lydia? I was just wondering, what is the possibility of having more recycling or refuse stations around the district? Something similar to our Alpine recycle stations, especially for our rural areas that don't have any waste collection. We're still seeing a lot of rural pits and recycling going in general waste collection that rural people pay for. I just think that we could probably do more to encourage more recycling and safe disposal of rubbish.
Yep, sure. So the system at Castle Hill and Arthur's Pass works really well because of their isolation from sort of normal urban areas. The main issue we struggle with when trying to consider adding a similar sort of recycling station setup to communities that are in urban areas close to normal curbside collections is that you can put in a recycle station, but if you don't put a waste option there also, then the recycle station ends up filled with rubbish as well. And then if you put in bins or skips for rubbish too, suddenly you've created this monster of a thing to try and manage around people tipping couches, and we're really struggling to deal with that conundrum, and we have been investigating pay-per-use compactor systems so that you have a recycle station there and a compactor system that you could use a credit card or whatever to pay you $3 a bag or to dispose of your rubbish. But it's a complicated one. But if you have areas that are looking for solutions, and we're always happy to go and talk directly and try and understand what we could do to accommodate.
Yeah, I think that it's more around the recycling. So people are really happy to pay for their waste, which is a relatively cheap option for a 44-gallon drum. It's like $25 a month, which is great. But everybody's recycling is going into that as well. So I think it's more about having some recycling options available for people that don't have to drive an hour and a half, 2 hours to drop off their recycling, like filling your car with your bottles and cans and stuff. So
maybe it's something we could do as a very publicised trial, and if it doesn't work, we go back to the drawing board. Okay, take on board. Thank you.
Thanks. Sophie? Oh, thank you very much. Definitely looking forward to having a look around the Rediscover Centre. As far as I'm aware, we're not going on Monday. That might be something to do with the Christchurch councillors visit or something. But the question I had was around the Hawkins pit. That sounds quite worrying. How bad is that likely to be, please?
Yes, sorry, I might potentially put you wrong on that. There was just information that came to light recently around a visit. In terms of Hawkins pit, I don't want to sort of create unnecessary alarm, but also wanted to make sure that you were aware of it. So we have been working for years now on major gold landfills, and as part of that, with Hawkins pit, some historic aerial photos came to light that weren't previously available online, and they indicated that waste was in areas that we weren't expecting it, because we took anecdotal accounts, we took historic aerial photos, and we did test bits and things. So we ended up doing ground penetrating radar. We found some additional stuff that looked like it could be a problem. Long story short, that area tends to flood if it does on the other side. Concern is, I'm not a river engineer, the concern is always rivers can change. So that's why we've kind of prioritised work on that. And we've spoken with Dan, who used to work here, obviously, and his counterparts around pragmatic solutions to dealing with that. And we're hoping that it might be something as simple as literally excavating material within a certain range and putting it on top of Hawkins pit. And then refilling that river bank area with virgin gravels from the area. But we're yet to work through what that means. Yeah. I don't think it doesn't appear to be an immediate high risk. I don't think we're thinking Fox River. If that's what you're. Yeah.
But how deep is the material that's in there? In the sense of, is it excavable? If that's even a word. Excavatable.
I can't fully remember now. This came in late towards the end of last year, and then we started having some conversations weekend. I think 2 to 3 meters deep. So it had to be some fairly significant scour on the upward side of the riverbank for that to occur. And all the historical images we've seen of floods and inspections were done after the last event last year, that large event we had, all involved flooding on the downhill side. Yeah.
Sam?
Well, just for, I think you thought about Andrew. 3 things. Right, firstly, the recycling. As Lydia mentioned, I'm saying Garrett is half full of recycling, with people with the best of intentions putting stuff aside, waiting for the day that they might drive somewhere and then never be able to fill up their boot to get here because there's too much stuff. So even if there's an option of partnering with, say, Farmlands or somewhere that it could actually be put as a trial with a business in Darfield that's got space where rural people go. So it's not just, it's not a place where everyone feels that it's just theirs to use. That's somewhere central, and the railway station, there's another spot that provides an opportunity. You look at that examples, but there's something that's use the word trial and books basically to support that community. And the time Monday you raised, so councillors, it's Christchurch City Council here. We're meeting at Te Atia on Monday. There'll be a short morning tea. We're going to get on a bus. We're going to show them around so that they understand the changes that have gone on here in Ralston, and that'll include a visit to Pines into the wastewater treatment plant. It's a compressed visit, but I want them to see the road work with infrastructure being a real enabler for our community, so that they can see where that sits. So I'm hoping that you can all be here and a part of that visit with new councillors on Monday. There are 6 new councillors, so there's a big changeover for them as well.
Okay.
Yep. Pass it in the diary, 10 o'clock, I think. It's all in the diary. So there's a diary there. And lastly, the Hawkins pet pace, that does concern me, because we've just seen whether events get bigger and bigger, And just because something used to happen last flood doesn't mean it will happen that way the next time. And although it's on the uphill side of the river, that only floods the other side because the water hits that side and it bounces down the other way. So it just doesn't feel like it's going to take much for that to be scoured out and then to have rubbish down the Hawkins. So pleased to see that's something that you're focusing on and can see what the next steps would be to protect that space, particularly with rising gravel levels. And we saw the flooding last time with Wakatahi being very resistant to investing in protection of the bridge and doing work under the bridge to allow water to travel. So that the whole area is ECAN, Wakatahi and ourselves have an interest in improving that. So don't feel like you're trying to improve it by yourself.
Thank you. They're going to chip in for funding as well. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I should say that we're probably one of the most advanced in terms of our assessment of landfills, old closed landfills, I would say, in the country. ECAN are doing a lot of work, but we've done a lot of our own work independently to build on some of the early stuff that they did, there'll be other ones in other areas with next to rivers, because we seem to do it next to rivers. That'll be much higher risk than ours. But ever since Fox River, I've had it in the back of my head, I don't want to sit tight and not worry about it, because I don't want to be in the same position under my watch. Yeah.
Shane?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Andrew. I just wanted to commend you on the near completion of the Reconnect project and also the Education Centre. You were throwing a few curveballs last year, so congratulations, and you're doing a great job. The no objection on loads, is that attributable to the successful? I think you ran out of warden program, because I actually got a ticket on mine. Hey, sharpen up on what you're disposing of there. So if that's attributable to that, then well done, congratulations. And I just wanted to remind me the cost of a reject load compared to running out the program. So that's good news for our residents. I'll mix up my notes here, just 1 minute. The e-truck that's been rolled out here, can we attribute that to our 22 carbon reduction efforts as a council? Would that be measured as something, or that data collected as part of our commitment, or can it be? And also the use of sustainable fixtures on the centre that you're building. Is that also attributable to our commitment to carbon reduction, albeit small? And could that be templated for perhaps some of our more infrastructure builds? And just to echo, the concern around pits. I see that's now closed our landfill management plan. Does part of that plan include rehabilitation / future use expectations sort of thing? Thank you.
Sure, so how to keep up with all those questions. All good. The reject cost for truckloads from memory was about $1,300. That'll probably hit more like $1,500–1,600 after July with the increase in the waste levy. The low contamination rates is I think a whole real mixture of things. We're doing okay. We have blips and we have areas that aren't as good. But certainly the audit team that went around did help, despite the backlash from some people that didn't like them. But also a lot of it was around careful messaging during those not the earthquake times. So at various times when people put out some not so favourable messaging in different areas that resulted in bad contamination in different districts. The electric vehicle, no, that's just something that's been working on separately in terms of trying to get that on the cards. I have indicated to a contractor on numerous occasions that there would likely be weighting in future tender attributes around emissions reductions, and certainly from my point of view, I'm quite hot on that. So I think when they saw that the truck was available, the municipal manager in the south tried to nab that for Selwyn. Absolutely impact on our carbon emissions from our collections. They're certainly a significant contributor to our overall emission footprint. It's only one truck. It's going to be predominantly based in Selwyn, but doing some Christchurch stuff as well. So unfortunately, we don't get to maximise some of that branding we could have. But hopefully it's the start of more. Each eats into sustainable fittings and fixtures. That, again, it wasn't part of the wider carbon or environmental plan other than what's the focus of that whole site. Quite interesting to go through that. And on the civil stage, we're a long way from that being standard practice, and it is difficult. And I just found myself constantly questioning and battling against stock standard processes and go-tos for solutions for things. It was always, we'll just stick some steel beams in here. And it's like, yeah, is there any way we could do that in wood? But you have to balance that, and economic sustainability is part of that. And so we didn't, with the reuse shop, we haven't been too idealistic, and where it made sense to go, let's just put a big steel rafter through here because we can do it at a third of the cost, and it can take the weight of X, Y, and Z. We weren't silly about it. So yeah, it certainly is a battle to get that sustainable building stuff over the line. And then enclosed landfills. I forget what your comment was.
As part of that,
yes,
plan rehabilitation and or safeguarding and future use.
Absolutely. I had hopes that one day, should there be sufficient capping on those, or when we get sufficient capping, that we could potentially make them into green dots, the kakariki. Yep. Thank you.
And Grant.
I'm aware of the landfill at Le Bons Bay, the Christchurch City Council, but I dug that out and carted it away, but it speaks to a substantial cost. But my understanding was that they may have got some significant funding out of the landfill levy for that, which would seem to apply, I would have thought. I mean, it's supposed to be for waste minimisation, but it's a good argument. I would have thought when there's some environmental benefits to rehabilitate an existing landfill. You could argue the point, couldn't you?
And we have, and it has been raised with the ministry several times previously as well, and they won't currently have a bar of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I understand that one was budgeted to be 1.1 million and ended up being triple that, because when they got onto it again, it was triple the size they thought. But I agree, they should be utilising levy funds to assist with that.
Yeah,
agreed.
Thank you. Can I have a mover for the report that the committee receives the update from the resource recovery and waste activities? Malcolm and Lydia. All in favour? Carried. And I just make a comment that if any councillors are unable to make Monday's meeting, with regards to the visit to the Pines and the resource recovery part, if they could possibly let our mayor know. So
I'll be able to put that sent to us, the details, because we've got governance meeting on this number.
yeah. Yeah. So I'll let that be dealt with after the meeting. Thank you. And we will now go to tab 15. On page 152, and facilities and open spaces report, and that is going to be delivered by Murray Washington. And Rob Allen is going to answer some questions if available.
That's right. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not going to go through the detail. These are for information. As I know, we have rebranded the report to facilities and open spaces. We have Rob and myself have told all the pure property matters out, and they'll be reported through another committee. So I'll take it as read, but if you've got any questions, Rob's here to help me through this. If there's any particularly spicy ones, curly ones.
So, is there any questions on this report? Grant?
Great to see how successful we've been on the TIF funding. I thought through the annual plan process that we were trying to progress Kirwi as a matter of priority. Is that going to apply for the next TIF round, or
I have to follow that through.
this? I mean, good for Sheffield, but Sheffield already had a rehabilitated toilet in their reserve. Kirwi didn't have any in the public.
I'll have to follow that one up. We have been spectacularly successful. That it's a real credit to the staff who've been involved in those applications over a number of years. But I can't provide any more detail on what they're Rob. Okay, that's fine.
Sophie?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm just trying to find my notes. I was going to ask about Reed's Pit and signage around the level of water and not going into the water, but also both Councillor Reid and I have witnessed people driving along the track. I'm just wondering if we have a bollard past the toilets yet to stop people driving in there rather than just maintenance vehicles, because that's clearly not in the intention of that track for walking.
It's taken a long time to dry out. We will we'll talk to Cam about where they're at. Obviously, access to that pit's still an issue, and obviously that may be tied up with the intersection upgrade in coming years.
It's just to separate what is the car park from what is the area that people are biking and walking around. I mean, you would think people should be able to understand that, but they clearly can't, because there are cars that have driven around, which is biking tracks, which will have walkers on as well, which is quite a serious potential health and safety issue.
I saw an interesting nose to nose with two on car trying to get out and one trying to get in, which was anyway. Yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other thing?
Yep. Just on the Waimakere toilet upgrade. If the money needs to be spent somewhere else, because we can't get a toilet there in the time that's required, let's make sure that happens and we get the toilet on. And equally though, the Waimakere is a very popular area where heaps of people go and actually does need a toilet facility. So just because the landowner isn't that keen on us using or replacing the toilet there, we do need to find a solution. So toilets at the Waimakere bridge.
Maybe an alternative site.
Well, there is an alternative site, let's get on to that. But that doesn't
We'll have to go
release the Waimakere.
And I have one query on page 153, and maybe someone can help me. Where is the Grain Shed public toilet? And if someone knows which district it's in, could we actually please have the district recorded? No, it is Darfield. That's fine, as long as I know the area. Okay, if there's no further questions on that report, can I have a mover and a seconder, please, that we accept for information the facilities and open spaces report? Sophie and Elizabeth. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, now we have an update on a verbal update on tab 16, with regards to coming from Murray, Washington, due to Al Lawn being involved and the staff being involved in the North Island emergency management. So, Murray.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. As you might mention that Al will report to these meetings. Recently you received a guidebook from the group, and I've asked Al if he can prepare something for our district, because we have a number of aspects of emergency management, which is hard to keep track of sometimes. So it's really good to know all the pieces fit together. But Al's not available. He's in Auckland. Has been up there since 10 days, basically. Finishes tomorrow, and he'll be back tomorrow, and so on. So I'll give you a bit of an update where we've got to in the last few weeks After the significant flooding event in Auckland 2.5 weeks ago, I think it was very late January, we 3 staff went up from Silver Fence went to Auckland for that event. One was Dave Tippett, who was our planning manager, Ali Archer, our recovery manager, and Jed Moore, who's one of our external controllers, went to Auckland. They were quickly followed by 2 more of our controllers, Helene, who's also an external controller, and our Lawn, and Heather Thomas, who's a volunteer in the EOC team. Since then, and late last week, Helene Fast went up for her second tour of duty. Ian Lawrence, who's the third of our external controllers, has gone up, and we've sent 8 of our RT21, which is our Selwyn response team. These are the trained volunteers, which we've got about 30 of, who got their accreditation late last year. So this is a fantastic opportunity for them. A number of these staff are coming back in the next few days. Our response team, the 8 of them, will come back on a Saturday. We've currently also have just received approval to send more staff up. The Ali has gone to Northland to act as the help with the recovery up there. We've got Jason Llewellyn, who's the emergency management officer, and 4 members of another group we have, which is the Selwyn Emergency Response support team, are going up in the next 24 hours, subject to where they can get flights and accommodation. So that's where most of the North Island. Jason's going to Hastings. Most of them have gone to Auckland and Northland. This event is unprecedented. I think it's 400 paper, 1 in a 100-year event. More importantly, there's 2 things for us. A, we can show tangible support for the event. Secondly, it's training that we could not get anywhere else. And so one of the secrets of Selwyn is our response is predicated around the fact that people get plenty of opportunities for practice for real life emergencies. And I have been a wee bit nervous about having so many offside and look at the weather forecast. But obviously the rain today has been very coastal and is not expected to cause any problem. And we've got enough staff around to keep track of things. So look, we are still, and Al could talk about this in future meeting, still thought of as one of the, because of you funded one of the best emergency response teams in the country. And that's all I'd say is you've funded it. It's your credit. But thank you.
Sam?
Yeah, I would say thank you, Murray, for leading this work and allowing those people to go. It is the best training that we can provide to them. And I've received many messages from the mayors on those places talking about how grateful they are for our people being there. I mentioned this to Al last week, and I'll just raise it again here. We do just need to consider the Alpine fault or other, which would be unforeseen, well, foreseen, but we wouldn't know when that was going to happen. With a forecast, we can see and get people back here if we knew that we were going to need them. And if an event was to happen here in Selwyn, making sure that we've got enough of our own people trained here to make sure we can run a good response for our own community as well.
Yeah, confident we have. I mean, we have got 5 controllers, which is actually probably at the high end of number of controllers, and 3 of them being external means that they don't, it doesn't interfere with our day job as well. EOC, we're always looking for more staff to be trained. That's part of an ongoing campaign within council, and all staff are required to provide support to emergency management. So, yeah, earthquake's an interesting thing. The recovery starts almost immediately after the earthquake. These events are very scary because you just don't know what's happening.
Can I have a mover for the emergency management report, please, on the agenda? Shane and Bob. All in favour, say aye. Carried. Okay, well, that concludes the public part of the meeting. We will now actually close this public part and go and have a resolution to exclude the public to go into public excluded. Move it in a seconder. Jane and Nicole. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. And thank you to the members of the public who were watching.
Right.